In the heart of an old mountain village, surrounded by pines and snowfall, lived a man named Daiki. He was known for his quiet strength, the kind of man who rarely spoke, but when he did, everyone listened. Daiki wasn't always like this. Years ago, he was loud, bold, quick to respond, quicker to fight. In his youth, silence felt like weakness. If someone insulted him, he fired back. If someone crossed him, he made sure they knew never to do it again. He believed strength was loud, sharp, immediate. That belief changed the night he lost everything. Back then, Daiki ran a small trade shop. He worked alongside his younger brother, Haru. They were close, more than brothers. They were like mirror reflections. Where Daiki burned with fire, Haru brought calm. Where Daiki argued, Haru listened. But one day, a misunderstanding with a powerful merchant turned into something else. Words were exchanged, accusations, and Daiki, true to form, refused to back down. "You're not going to disrespect me," he had said, voice raised, fists clenched. But that fire cost him more than he expected. The merchant blacklisted their shop, suppliers vanished, and debts began piling up. Daiki tried to fix it, tried to undo what had been done with apologies that came too late. Haru took the brunt of it in silence. And one morning, Daiki woke up to find a note. "I need peace. I can't find it here anymore." Haru had left. No anger, no blame, just silence. And in that silence, Daiki heard the weight of everything he had refused to let go. For weeks after Haru left, Daiki kept expecting the door to open, for his brother to walk in with that same quiet smile, carrying tea in one hand and forgiveness in the other. But the door never opened. Instead, Daiki sat alone, day after day, surrounded by silence. A silence he once would have filled with noise. But now, there was nothing left to say. At first, he was angry. Angry at Haru for walking away. Angry at the merchant. Angry at the world for punishing him for speaking his truth. But the truth wasn't what cost him everything. It was the way he held it. It was the shouting, the pride, the refusal to let things go, even when letting go could have saved everything. One night, unable to sleep, Daiki went up to the ridge overlooking the valley. He stood beneath the stars, the cold air biting at his skin. He remembered how Haru used to say, "Sometimes, peace speaks louder than 1,000 words." Back then, Daiki thought that was weakness. Now, it felt like wisdom. He finally asked himself a question he had always avoided. What if walking away isn't surrender? What if it's strength? He imagined Haru leaving, not in anger, but in control, not in fear, but in clarity. And for the first time, Daiki realized he hadn't lost his brother to silence. He had lost him to pride. The silence wasn't what hurt. It was what exposed the hurt he'd never faced. Days turned into weeks. Daiki started closing his shop earlier. Not because there were no customers, there were still a few, but because he no longer found meaning in keeping busy for the sake of noise. Instead, he spent his time walking the forest paths Haru once loved, listening, not for sounds, but for himself. And in those quiet walks, he began to notice things he never had before. The way the wind carried through the trees, the way his breath moved when he didn't speak, the weight that lifted when he simply chose not to react. One evening, he returned from a walk to find a man arguing loudly in front of his shop. A dispute over a price. A crowd had gathered. The old Daiki, the one built on fire, would have met it head-on, voice raised, eyes fierce. But that version of him had died the day his brother left. Daiki didn't yell. He didn't defend himself. He looked the man in the eye and simply said, "You're free to go. I don't wish to continue this." Then he walked away, leaving the crowd in stunned silence. That night, an old friend visited him. "You've changed," he said. "Years ago, you would have fought him on the spot." Daiki nodded. "Years ago, I mistook reaction for strength. Now I know. Real strength is restraint." His friend raised an eyebrow. "And if people take advantage of your silence?" Daiki looked up from his cup of tea. "Let them. I no longer fight to be right. I walk away to protect my peace." And in that moment, he wasn't just saying it, he meant it. If this story speaks to you, consider subscribing and tap the bell so you don't miss what comes next. Not long after, a letter arrived. It was from Haru. Simple. Few words. No explanations. Just a short message. "I'm well. I hope you are too. I've been thinking of coming back, if that's all right." Daiki read it twice, then a third time. His hands trembled, not from fear or excitement, but from the fragile beauty of a door slowly reopening. He didn't respond right away. Instead, he walked to the same ridge where he had once questioned everything. He stood there, letter in hand, heart steady. He thought about how far he had come, not in distance, but in discipline. The kind of growth that doesn't show in muscles or wealth, but in the pause before a reaction, in the ability to walk away, not out of defeat, but from the wisdom of not needing to win. Later that week, Haru returned. He stood at the edge of the village, unsure if he'd be welcomed. But Daiki didn't say a word. He just walked up and embraced him. No need for apologies. No need to revisit what had been lost, because silence had already said what words could not. Over the next few days, they spoke, slowly, cautiously, with the kind of honesty that only comes after everything else has been burned away. One night, by the fire, Haru asked, "What changed?" Daiki looked into the flames. "I stopped needing to be louder than my pain. I let silence teach me what anger never could." Haru nodded. He understood. He had understood long before Daiki did. Because sometimes, the strongest people aren't the ones who speak the most. They're the ones who know when not to. After Haru's return, the village noticed a quiet change, not just in Daiki, but in the energy around him. People still came to him with their troubles. Some came angry, hoping to pull him into conflict. Others came grieving, needing someone to hold space for their pain. But Daiki no longer reacted the way he once did. He listened more, spoke less. When tempers flared, he let silence answer first. One day, a young man came to him, furious after being humiliated by a local elder. His voice trembled with rage. "I wanted to scream at him," the young man said. "I wanted to throw his words back at his face." Daiki nodded slowly. "And what stopped you?" The boy hesitated. "I remembered what you did last week, when the merchant yelled at you in the market. You didn't say a word. You just looked at him and walked away." Daiki smiled gently. "Silence isn't weakness. It's choice." The boy asked, "But didn't it feel like losing?" Daiki looked out the window, where the wind moved through the trees without resistance. "Losing is when you give someone the power to pull you out of your peace," he said. "Walking away means keeping that power." The boy was quiet for a moment, then nodded. Later that evening, Haru watched his brother from across the firelight. "You've changed," he said. Daiki smiled. "I haven't changed. I just finally learned the weight of my own voice and the strength of choosing not to use it." The two sat in silence, not because they had nothing to say, but because they no longer needed noise to feel connected. In that stillness, there was peace, and in that peace, there was power. If this story speaks to you, consider subscribing and tap the bell so you don't miss what comes next. Seasons passed. The village grew older. Faces changed. Stories faded. But Daiki remained a quiet presence, steady, grounded, unshaken. He no longer felt the need to prove anything. Not his strength, not his pain, not even his change. He simply lived it. One cold morning, as the first snow began to fall, he sat beneath the old pine near the edge of the ridge, the same place he once stood lost, angry, full of noise. Now it was quiet. A traveler passed by and paused when he saw Daiki sitting alone, eyes closed, a calm smile on his face. "You live here?" the traveler asked. Daiki opened his eyes. "I do. You look like a man who's fought many battles." Daiki thought for a moment. "I have," he said, "but not the kind you see." The traveler tilted his head. "Did you win?" Daiki smiled. "I walked away." The traveler blinked, unsure what that meant, but sensing something in those words, something heavy and free. As the man left, Daiki remained seated. He watched the snow fall, slow and soft, covering the earth in silence. The kind of silence that doesn't feel empty, the kind that feels earned. Because walking away doesn't mean giving up. It means choosing peace over pride, stillness over reaction, healing over control. And in a world where everyone is shouting to be heard, sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is to say nothing at all. Have you ever walked away in silence when everything inside you wanted to speak? Share your story in the comments. I'm listening.